Sports Talk with Playeragent3. My next guest is another ACC that's been on the show, a monster at UVA, Mr. Junior. What's up?
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Man, hey, I'm just trying to stay safe with this coronavirus, man.
I took my mask off for this, man. So yeah, we're trying to do our best right here as well.
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you doing this, man. So look, you from Charlotte, right? Charlotte, North Carolina, man. I had Jeff McGinnis and Alonzo Coleman. I don't know if you know Alonzo Coleman, but I had him on the show yesterday. He's a lot younger, but
right.
Those are both Charlotte guys, man, and they showed me some love, on the show.
My boy Jeff McGinnis is my first point guard I ever played with. We from the same neighborhood. We from West Charlotte, so
yeah. Okay, yeah. So staying with that, man, how was it growing up in Charlotte in terms of playing basketball?
Well, I mean, at first, we played whatever sport was out there. Our rec center was right around the corner from Jeff's house.
Uh-huh.
It was a little bit more of a walk for me, but like we played everything. We played baseball, we played football, flag football, and then when basketball season came around, it became basketball. And we had a guy who was looking for his teacher certificate, and he was a cross country and tennis scholarship guy for John C. Smith. His name is Gary Robinson. And he kind of got us all on one team, myself, Jeff McGinnis, Andrew Jordan, Sean Ferguson, and we had a great core group of guys, about eight guys that really started that 11 and 12-year-old group that he kind of got going with us. And that kind of got me, that was my first introduction to real up and down basketball, as opposed to just kind of playing with your friends as a 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
9 years gave us structure and showed us what to do and everything else. And man, that first basketball team we got on, we were undefeated. And
man,
all went from there.
Man, I think the first memory that I remember you from is I think you played with the Sonics or the Royals. Which one of those AAU teams did you play for?
We played for the Sonics. Now, we don't talk about the Royals very often as they were the mortal enemies, kind of like Virginia Tech, Virginia, Auburn, Alabama. But to your point, yeah, I played for the Sonics. Now, the Royals were George Seifert. I mean, he was a good guy. He had a bunch of my friends on that team. It wasn't only two good teams running around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the Solid Sonics and the Charlotte Royals.
So you started out, man, at West Charlotte, but you ended up at Oak Hill Academy, man. What was behind that decision to leave West Charlotte and go to Oak Hill?
It was kind of like just the progression of the basketball that we were playing. I mean, It was really more about, I wasn't lost. That's not the right word for it. But, you're just looking for that next chapter, that next great experience.
Uh-huh.
And what is that, like my father and my crew at my house, we wasn't very up on this basketball stuff. Like, I didn't know that I was the number one player in the state of North Carolina. I didn't know that I was ranked high. We didn't care about that kind of stuff, man. It was Street Smith back in the end. And, you might see Bob Gibbons at a tournament down in South Carolina. And, we won the tournament. So he would have a little interview with you. And of course, you're all proud of it and everything else. But man, we didn't read those articles and read those interviews. And my coach, my AAU coach, Clarence Johnson, who's also another John C. Smith grad, we didn't talk about that stuff, man. It was all about the grind. So when I got to talking about there being a transition for me and giving me an opportunity to go do something else and prepare myself for college, at that time, there was nothing else. You just go from West Charlotte to whatever school you go to, because we had a great coach as well. But, my AAU coach kind of convinced me to go up there and work out. And I went up there on the weekend, man, and I worked out with the team before, the team that was there before me. And they had a guy named Anthony Cade. They had Ben Davis. They had Wilfred McCarty, a bunch of guys at my size, maybe a little bit bigger. And I just realized, man, that I was a big fish in a little pond. And I needed to see if I could be that big fish with other big fish. That's really what it was. It's nothing else. And as soon as I got in that car back with him and left, I realized this was the place for me. Coach Smith hadn't really said anything. My dad didn't really understand what I was really doing. But it was just my first opportunity to go see where I fit in and where I could excel. And Coach Smith set the platform, really. I mean, it's that simple for me at the time. You know, I know nowadays there's so many things going. You got 15 people to talk to. And that workout. We worked out. I got my ass whooped a little bit. I got my ass handed to me by some guys I thought were, man, I just realized instead of being nervous and scared, I realized at the time, man, if I want to be good, I got to challenge myself every day.
Right, man. And that's what I was going, the next question, man, about being at Oak Hill. You know, Oak Hill is known as a perennial powerhouse, man. Like, what was your mindset when you was there?
It was really about myself, Ben Davis, Henry Jameson, and Wilfred McCarty kind of going at each other every day. I can't explain to you how exciting it was, because at West Charlotte, we were just the dogs. We were the group. Like, it's no question about whether we were going to win the game. It's just a matter of what was going to happen and how many points, and were we going to be unselfish or were we going to play together. But when I got to Oak Hill, man, and I started getting up and getting to these practices, man, it was days where, man, I just got my ass 100, and I embraced that. I always have. Like, I've always embraced somebody getting the best of me and knowing that I had another opportunity to get it back. And I think that's really what helped me become the player I became. And that kind of competitive edge that's what I was always about. So, I found that at Oak Hill on a daily basis.
Right. So one thing, man, that's interesting to me is, okay, you're at Oak Hill and you signed to play at the University of Virginia, but you're a Charlotte guy, a Charlotte, North Carolina guy. How did NC State, North Carolina, Duke, Wake Forest miss out on you? Well,
you know, I mean, you saw the 30 for 30 on the Fab Five. I mean, Duke wasn't really recruiting us like that. Like, they wasn't recruiting. They recruited Chris Webber, they recruited Grant Hill. They didn't really recruit guys like us. You know what I'm saying? So it's no real disrespect to them, but they didn't really chase us. You know what I mean? So but Carolina, NC State had fell off. Like, they had just fired Jim Valvano around my time. They had moved to LA here. They was wearing the onesies. I don't know if you remember.
I remember that. Yeah. Of course.
Keep that, man. Nobody's wearing that, right? And they were in LA, so it was kind of like, and Wake Forest was the other option for me. But Rodney Rogers, Trelawney Owens, and all those guys were kind of like really on that team. So everybody was kind of in my same position, along with them and Carolina, man. I mean, you just had so many power forwards, so many great power forwards and stuff like that. It was just a big deal to kind of, you wanted to go somewhere where you could not only make a name for yourself, but play. You know, play. Right. And that's really what it was about for me. So I needed to be in that arena where I had an opportunity to be on the team and play.
So when you actually played those teams, when you guys went down to play those teams, did you have a chip on your shoulder, or it was just business as usual?
Well, I had a chip on my shoulder. I mean, they booed me. They booed me at North Carolina, right? So, and I got booed at NC State. It really wasn't a booing thing at Wake Forest at the time, because, I mean, they had Rodney Rogers and those guys, so they didn't really feel left out. But, I mean, you got to remember at the time, I mean, the best teams in the country were Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, Syracuse. You know, it's kind of like that crew on the East Coast. So the Big East was still, Georgetown was still that group. So those were kind of where I was thinking about really playing. But Kentucky was still on probation. They had another year of probation. So it just kind of, once I went on my visit to Charlottesville, I realized that was just the place for me. Everything else kind of fell into place. Plus, you know, obviously all your home games are in Charlottesville, which is great. But all your away games is where you from. Like, my dad's family is originally from South Carolina, so we go play Clemson, we go down to Georgia Tech, so it's always family. It was always a family atmosphere for me at the game. So that gave me that extra motivation to kind of go on the road, and you want to play in front of your family. So I've never had that thing in my head where I'm not ready to go play, because I'm always playing in front of somebody I was trying to impress, or I was actually trying to beat. So right. What it was.
Right. So, freshman, man, you're a freshman at UVA. You with Corey Alexander, man, Harold Dean, Jamal Robinson, man. You guys had a stacked team, man. What was your mindset going into UVA with all those great players surrounding you, man? What was your mindset?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about going to Oak Hill, man. You come into you come into trying to help the Brian Stiffs and the Anthony Olivers and the Cornell Parkers and everybody that Virginia had that were already there. Guys that were busy. So when Corey and I got there, man, it was really just about, man, we trying to win the ACC. We trying to get, because if you can compete in the ACC, man, you're one of the best teams in the country. I mean, that's just like, at that time what it was. So, I mean, it's a rude awakening, obviously. I mean, it's just a bunch of naivete. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you about to get your ass handed to you again. But like, I always embraced the competition, like I said earlier. And man, it was just always fun. Like my first time at Cole Fieldhouse, and we played against Walt Williams, and then my first time at NC State with Tom Gugliotta and Brian Fagans and Kevin Thompson. Like you and I can sit here and talk about all of this stuff because I'm an ACC. I'm not just a player from the ACC and a legend now. Mm-hmm. I'm also a fan back then. I mean, I go back with NC State with Chris Washburn, Georgia had Hammonds and Horace Grant and all those guys at Clemson. So there isn't a school that I didn't want to see because that's just where we're from. And we always kept somebody from our area.
Right.
Like the first real black dude that was really doing something for us was Robert Brickey. Like, he's the guy that went to Duke from Fayetteville. We was like, oh man, they do recruit kind of guys like us. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Even though we played nothing alike, but he was just so athletic and he played so many minutes at the time. But you don't know what's going on. You just kind of looking at, man, there's a guy like us. Then they get Cedric Henderson, and they get a couple other guys. So now you start to see people that look like you from your hometown. You see Brad Doherty and all those other guys from that area, and you get a chance to see. So James Worthy first, obviously, from Gastonia, from the Gas House. So all that kind of stuff, man, made you feel like you belong, or you have an opportunity to belong once you get to that level. So I've always been in awe of our conference and what we were able to do, man.
So staying on that theme on the first time, like you said, the first time you played in Cole Fieldhouse, man. So the first time you played at Cameron and the first time you played at the Dean Dome, did you have butterflies or it was attack, or you was ready to put that work in?
I'm glad you say that. So everybody tries to lie to you. I know people get old and they try to lie to you on this thing right here on your podcast. I won't lie to you and say I was nervous, because what's funny, we play them back to back. Like, that's what the road was. We go to NC State, then you go to North Carolina, then you go to Duke, and then you go to Georgia Tech. So you don't have time to be sitting in your hotel room nervous, but it's really the competition. Like Cliff Rozier, Eric Montross at Carolina, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, and at Duke. It was really more about them than it was the fans and all this other stuff, because you're playing against the best guys in the country, and you're watching them. So I wasn't nervous, but I was the butterflies and the excitement of being in that atmosphere, because you're good enough to beat them, and the fans and everybody know it. And that's kind of what it all boiled down to. So they treated you horribly, right? They booed you in game warm-ups and all this other stuff, which for me made you more comfortable. Like I didn't have the JRs can't read stuff, all the stuff they did to those other guys. I didn't have none of that, because I'm a North Carolina boy, and they just booed me and they called me a traitor, right? So it started at State. By Tuesday, we had North Carolina, so I had kind of gotten used to what was going to happen, and my whole coaching staff kind of knew what it was. So they're like, "Yo, you got to be ready for this." And I always embraced it, man, because it came from love. They weren't jerk fans. Like, you could look them in the face and they might smile at you and be like, "Oh, you're horrible," blah blah blah. But it wasn't nothing too much. Like, it's not Utah. You know what I'm saying? Like, Utah, you've heard some of the stories about going to places like that and playing. It wasn't anything like that, man. Like, our fans were hard on teams coming in, and man, you just embraced it because the teams were so good. Plus, you had friends on the other team, like Antonio Lang and Grant Hill. Man, those guys were good people, and we kicked it off the court. Christian Laettner, Brian Davis, guys kicked it. So Stackhouse, Jeff McGinnis, it's hard for me to sit there and be like, I hate those guys. I just wanted to beat Brian Reese and them and Eric Montross and those guys. I wasn't in this thing for anything negative or to come out. I wanted to be a guy who beat the Dean Smith. I wanted to be on a team that was with Jeff Jones and my coach, and we wanted to beat Dean Smith and those guys, man. That's on my resume. Yeah. And that's kind of how I always looked at it, especially after the game. As the game is going on, you're trying to focus in and do your job. But after the game, man, I just shook Dean Smith's hand, man. Like, I really thought that was a big deal. And because I'm a North Carolina kid, of course, so that's kind of where it always comes from.
What was your welcome to the ACC moment? You know, a lot of people, like I've had a lot of guests on the show, man, that played in the ACC, man. They give me these stories that if a player, they had to guard a certain player, if they had to, somebody dunked on them, or what was your moment where you was like, okay, let's go?
You know, what's funny is like, so when the ACC first started, it's a couple of weeks into your season. Man, at the time, I was one of the leading scorers in the country as a freshman. Like I was 23 a game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd already played Robert Ory and those guys at Alabama. We played at Stanford. So I felt like my chest was way out. My confidence level was way up. But what happens when you get in the conference, there's more of a scouting report. There's more of what you guys like to do. There's more tape on you. And our first time playing, Duke came to us to play us. And my first real double team, because I played with Brian Stiff, man. Nobody doubled me. Brian Stiff was the guy, so I got to play secondary defense on somebody who was coming off of him. Man, they doubled me on the catch. I turned this thing over. I was falling all over the place. I wasn't ready, man. I wasn't ready for the other people's athleticism and speed in which people were able to move. And I know it's hard because I was already 8 or 9 games in, but playing in the ACC conference, playing against the best teams in the country right away, like our first ACC game, it's Duke at home. Like it's crazy. And then you got Carolina, then you got Georgia Tech coming into you. So it's like you don't even have a chance to kind of focus in on what just happened. You get your ass handed to you on Saturday, man. You got somebody else, number 3 team in the country coming in on Tuesday. And are you ready? Can you bounce back from those kind of things? So it really wasn't a one-time moment. It was just kind of, man, it was just a bad overall game. I know everybody's like, oh, he's just a freshman. You're supposed to expect those things. But I expected so much more of myself because I'd already played so well against Alonzo Mourning in Georgetown. I'd already played so well against Texas and Alabama and all these other teams, but I just wasn't ready for that step up from the number 1 team in the country and how Duke was able to guard me and how they just moved throughout the ball. Like, you know, my whole first half, man, I was shook. Just wasn't ready. So yeah, that was my first moment because they just were smarter than us and they just kind of knew that I was a rookie and it was just a matter of time before I fell into that. It's kind of the quarterback that's seeing ghosts, right? I don't know where to go with the ball. It was just a little bit of just being a little bit anxious because you got the number 1 team in the country in and everybody from your school is at the game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you're the guy. You're their guy because you're the freshman. You know, Brian Stiff is old news for him, man. He's 2,500 points. He's a pro. He's playing basketball. He wants to win. I'm supposed to be there for him. So it took me a whole half to kind of get myself together and realize I was able to compete with them.
Yeah. So, all right, it's obvious, man, that you had a terrific career at Virginia. When approaching your senior year, did you have that mentality that it was going to be the NBA or bust, or you just wanted to play professional basketball?
Well, it's funny because Bobby Dandridge, you know, they just at that point in time, the NBA would send people to your state representative. So they sent Bobby Dandridge to us, and he set down all the pro prospects, right? So my junior year, Bobby Dandridge came and sat down with myself, Cornell Parker, and Corey Alexander. So that was really my first. Oh man, this could be something. You know, I knew I had good numbers, but I never saw myself as a pro. Because I've always been a guy who's been able to focus in on what's going on. Like no agents were coming around. I had nobody talking to me about agents and all this other stuff. So man, we had such a good sophomore year. And then now I'm continuing to play like that as a junior, even though Corey had gotten hurt. And we went so far, we went to another Sweet 16. It just kind of fell into place for us. And now that opportunity for me to think about the pros and go play against other pros, that's really where it all kind of came from. Okay, I belong. Like I went home to Charlotte and we got to start playing against the Hornets in Summer League. And I got to go against Jamal Mashburn. And I got to play against Larry Johnson and all those guys. And once again, I got my ass handed to me again. But I belonged. Like I felt like I belonged and I felt like I was competing at the highest level. And I really appreciated that. But I also felt like if I continue to keep building, that I can be in this group, that I could be one of those guys. And I think that was my first initial aha moment, because now here I am playing in this gym and everybody in here is in the NBA and I'm the only college person they let in. Man, I gotta be somebody. I gotta be able to compete at this level on a consistent basis. And what I mean by that is there was a bunch of guys from overseas, but I was the only college guy that was able to get into that gym and play over that Albemarle Rec Center. I'm the only one that Byron Dickinson them let in. And man, it was just an honor to be in there. And then, of course, after those first couple of days get away, and now you're trying to compete to win the games, and now you posting up Larry Johnson, he coming at you, and grandmama smiling at you and all this other crazy stuff, but he dominating you, but you're able to compete. And after a while, man, now he's giving you advice. Now he's telling you what to do. And if you keep playing like this, man, that's going to be pretty good for you. So just always been humble and grinding it out, man. I always, after that my junior year, I kind of went into my senior year feeling like I belong. And if I do what I'm supposed to do, man, I can help put this team on my back and we can make a run at this.
All right. 1995, man, you drafted in the second round to the Boston Celtics. Can you take me back to when you got that phone call? What was going through your mind?
The funny part about it is, being totally honest, like at that point in time, I was projected to go between early in that summer, like early before the whole thing, I was projected to kind of go between 11 and like 23. So now that you've already gotten to the later rounds, I felt like a bunch of people went before me that didn't do what I did in college, right? So you kind of disappointed, and the teams that really wanted me didn't have a first round pick, like the Knicks that called me up for a workout, the Houston Rockets that really called me up for a workout, and of course the Phoenix Suns. So when the Phoenix Suns didn't draft me as the 27th pick, I felt some kind of way about that because I think I had one of my best workouts that you can have at a workout, and they took Mario Bennett, if I'm not mistaken. And, I ended up going that 32nd, I can't remember, 33rd pick, but the Houston Rockets had the 34th pick. And I was on the phone with Rudy Tomjanovich. Like, he was like, listen, we're going to treat you like a first rounder, really like what you're about. And then, of course, when I walk upstairs and tell my dad, I just got this call because my agent and I were down in another room because I was in my feelings a little bit about the fact that I had dropped so low for no reason of my own. You can't, all the power forwards start coming out. Because if you remember correctly, there was a strike at the beginning of our 95 year. And even though it was a small strike, everybody started going out. And that's the first time they put the pay scale in, where everybody wants to get that first contract out the way. So all of the younger power forwards, Joe Smith, Rasheed Wallace, McDyess, Corliss Williams, everybody came out. And all of us played power forward. And they went with the potential over the guy who, they thought might not be as good. And, Ed O'Bannon, all of us, kind of dropped a little bit. So, but then the Celtics took me right to pick before. So I was excited. And when I hear your name, man, it's a blessing to hear your name. But I just felt like I would have a better opportunity to play in the league if I would have been able to play for Houston instead of the Celtics. And of course, my time in Boston wasn't as long as I would like for it to be. But man, it was a great experience to be up there for those 2 years.
Yeah, so the time you did play with the Celtics, just the time that you played in the NBA, man, what was that like in terms of playing at the University of Virginia and playing on the NBA level? You're going up against a lot of legends, man. Akeem Olajuwon. It was just a lot of people, a lot of good players in the league at that time, man. Talk about that for a few seconds.
In your head, you always trying to say, listen, you just finished playing against pros. Like, I felt like I was a really good high school player. I felt like I was a really good college player. I felt like if given the opportunity, I can be a really good pro. Like, that's just the mindset that you have to put in your head. Like, I know sometimes it doesn't seem natural, but most of the guys that are playing in the NBA now, and most of the guys that played then, man, like when you undersized as a power forward or you are undersized, man, you got to start feeling a certain type of way about your skill set. Like, I felt like I was just as good as anybody else at all times. And you have to convince yourself of that because you're working. And then that's the only way you're able to go out there and compete. Like, man, you can't go against Ben Baker and those guys if you sitting over there worried about what's going to actually happen. Like, he's that, you're like, oh my God. know, and I did a lot of the small stuff, man. I wouldn't stretch. Like the first time we played the Bulls, like I didn't stand up and go through layup lines and be in awe of them. I laid down and stretched and got my look on, and you stare at the glow down there on the other end, and you see Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and all those guys, and you're able to like get that nervousness out of your mind, because first of all, you're not a starter. But then when you get in, you get an opportunity to get right away, man. You already kind of into the game. Like I always kept myself into those games. I was probably more nervous playing against the Sean Kemps of the world and maybe Charles Barkley, but I played against them so late in the season because of East Coast, West Coast stuff that I was already kind of in tune to what I was able to do out there on the court, and I was already ready. Sherman Douglas was a big help, and Purvis Ellison were a big help for me, getting me ready and trying to give me understanding of where I need to be on the court. on a consistent basis, man. I was a sponge for information from my old heads on my team on and before and after practice, man. So that's why I thought I would have been a better pro as far as the NBA guy if I would have had, just to be honest, a better coach. Like, I think ML was more of a transitional coach for the Celtics before we got to Rick Pitino. And I never got a chance to play for Rick Pitino because they kind of cleared house before he got, that's the business side of it that you can't do nothing about. But, if I would have had a chance to play for Rick, then I would have had a 10-year career, looking back at it as a 47-year-old now.
So you play in the NBA with the Celtics. What happened? What after the NBA? What was next for you? What happened after the NBA?
I don't know if you remember Dino Raja. Well, Dino was my powerful. He was a really good old head to have around. Like, he was the OG for me. So I'm still living there. And what happened was they traded Dino and I to the Philadelphia 76ers without any calls, without nothing being said. Like, I saw it on ESPN. I'm down there in the summer in Charlottesville working out, and I found out I got traded, right? So the general manager at the time for the Philadelphia 76ers, like, I can't remember his name now, calls me and was like, look, you with us? Do you want to play Summer League with us? And I was like, yeah, I want to play Summer League. I want to kind of get it out of my head of what's going on up there. I think I have a chance to be a good basketball player. And they were like, yeah, listen, we're probably going to fire our coach. We're not sure what we're going to do. But if you want to play Summer League, you got a spot. So long story short, I get into playing Summer League. They waived Dino Raja, and they waived the rights to my contract, which would have been my last year. And in that process, I'm on the phone with Dino about what just happened. And he's like, look, if this doesn't work out, my coach, my European coach, that used to be my national team coach, is looking for a power forward to come play for you and play in Rome. So if this doesn't work out, man, you'll love playing in Rome. And, I just wanted to play in the NBA. I wasn't thinking like that. Yeah. But as soon as the Summer League was over and they brought in Larry Brown, like, he didn't want any part of anybody on the Summer League team. Like, he basically just cut us off and said, thanks for coming out. Good night, basically. I mean, that's just kind of how the business side of it is. Even though I was leading us in scoring and rebounding and we won every game, it was just really how it is. Sometimes it's just a show. You out there playing and then they don't really have any room for you. So, I got on a plane maybe 3 days after getting cut from Summer League being over, and I went to Italy, and I played 2 years under this different coach, man, which is where I really, really, truly, honestly started learning to be the best version of myself. And I started working on the details of my game. The pros is about, in my opinion, it's about your fit and where you are and how you can be a basketball player. But overseas, you can become a complete, total basketball player because they need you to be as complete a basketball player, a screen setter, a passer, a ball handler, a shooter, a scorer inside, a rebounder, all those little small things that you got to understand that you can kind of get away with some certain things if you're an NBA player. Like, if you're a good rebounder and a good defender, you can play 10 years in the league like a Ben Wallace, who's more than that, but I'll give you an example, right? But you're a scorer, you come off the bench and you shoot the ball a bunch of times, you can't guard anybody. But if you can really score, you can keep a spot. But over there, I learned how to be the best version of myself. And it's unfortunate because I thought as a 30-year-old, I could have been a really good pro because I had started to learn and my maturation had gotten a lot better. But it wasn't meant to be, man. So, like I said, I spent a bunch of great years playing in Italy, Spain, and Greece. And then I started doing the Asia thing as well. So.
Okay. So when did you know that it was time to hang it up?
Man, probably when this quarantine happened, big dog. Like, I'm 47. I felt like I could play until I was like, I'm one of those old guys that probably would have needed an intervention, man. Like, it's been my life. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I love the basketball version of myself. Like, I had a great experience. God blessed me with a great experience about basketball. The good and the bad, the workouts, the effort, all that stuff, man. I really, really embraced it all. I had a great experience with it. And man, I played until I was 37 and and then I started missing some of my sons. He was born June 5th, right? And then I had to leave to go play in Puerto Rico, getting myself ready to go back overseas. And the next time I saw him was Christmas, he was walking. And those kind of things, started to hit me in my head like, wow, I'm missing his whole life. And then the next time I see him, because my wife was in medical school, because she can't just travel like everybody else, man, he's talking now. So I get home from the summer, like I missed a whole year of his life. And that's kind of when I started to realize I need to start making my way and start doing other things and find me a plan B situation. And that's kind of how it all started for me. So, but yeah, it's been everything. I got to see the entire world based on basketball. There is one place that I haven't been able to go except the Antarctica. Antarctica is, North and South Pole basically, without being the basketball. South America, the Philippines, you name it, your boy has gotten a chance to put his feet and play on the court. And I feel like that's a blessing. And I've always looked at it that way.
Right. That's good work, man. A few more questions, man. I'm gonna let you get out of here, man. How often are you back in Charlotte a lot?
Yeah, I'm back in Charlotte a lot, man. My dad and them are still down there. And I get to go down there in the summer times a lot when when I'm not coaching and everything, or they come up to me. But I get to get down to Charlotte, man, a couple of weeks every summer. And I try to get down there for one of the holidays, just because I'm not that far, like I said, I'm in Virginia Beach. So.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Queen City Pro-Am that they're going to do this summer? Okay.
We used to have it at Queens College, to be honest with you, when I played in it. And then it made its way over to North Met for a little while, like when I was in it. And then, of course, Touche took over, Jeff McGinnis took over it. And that was the last time I'd actually been an actual player. And I want to say we lost in the semifinals to Touche and then with Antoine Jameson and those guys. So that was the last time I was actually a member of a team down there, when the first year moved over to North Mexico. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. It was always a great summer league, and it's always been a lot of fun.
Real quick, man, and I'm sure you caught the Last Dance docu-series with the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan. And, everybody's talking about this GOAT conversation, and you played back in the early 90s. So, I'm not sure if Mike was retired when you were with the Celtics or not, but who's your GOAT?
Well, no, he came back. So he came back, and that's the 70-win season, the 72-win season, Michael Jordan team. Listen, he's the greatest player I've seen, right? Obviously, being a North Carolina boy, we're going to always pull for our people, right? He's the greatest basketball player I've personally seen. I got a chance to see Kareem and Wilt, who are the only other guys I would put in his category, to be honest with you, at this point in time. As much as I am a fan of like the LeBrons and the KDs and all those other guys, I mean, it's when people say he was different, like, he's different, man. He was a different kind of basketball player. Like, I don't have the word to explain the competitive edge, in addition to the athleticism and other things that he was able to put together to put that package on the court. It's like listening to somebody, the best musician. Like when you hear the best, when you saw Michael Jackson in concert, when you see somebody else, when you saw O.J. Simpson run, or you saw Barry Sanders run, when you see Michael Jordan play basketball, man, like, you're watching the best. And he said something that I wish a lot of people, and I know some people missed it. He never asked anything of anyone else that he wasn't willing to do himself. And as somebody who's seen him work out and been involved in workouts that he was involved in, like, man, it turned that thing up to a whole different level. When he came to Charlotte and was in that gym, like, that first 45 minutes, man, it was all basketball, dribbling drills, full court sprints to jump shots and et cetera. Man, he was just trying to get loose. And by the time it's time to play pickup, most of the guys were tired. And man, he was just trying to do that stuff to get loose. Like, he had a standard that I think a lot of people are missing out on. His standard of excellence was just somewhere that I don't think anybody else has really come close to. And he demanded that of himself every time. And that's why he would be my GOAT. I know LeBron is fantastic. It's hard to think of anybody that puts LeBron in the same category, Magic Johnson, et cetera, physically. But man, oh man, as far as what I saw and what he was able to do on the court, there isn't any other thing than number 23 for the Bulls.
All right, man, this last thing right here, man. It's been a lot of stuff on Instagram, and particularly the Queen City Pro-Am Instagram page where they've been talking about who's the GOAT of Charlotte. And I didn't really see your name come up too much, man. I don't know if the people forgot about you or I don't know what's going on with that, but who's the GOAT of Charlotte, man?
Well, I mean, listen, Byron Dinkins, I saw something with him on it. I mean, Byron Dinkins, Julius Springs, or Larry Crowder, for me, would be the three guys that I watch coming up. Like, I'm one of the few guys, like, if you can remember back, like, you had to petition to be a varsity player in the 9th grade back when I played.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you couldn't just play varsity basketball just because, you know, they wanted to keep you from transferring, right? You had to petition you had to be physically capable with 2 witnesses to say the coach and the general admissions and an assistant coach or something like that, for you to be able to sign a petition to your parents just in case you might get hurt playing against grown-ups. Right. So I'm one of the few guys who was able to play 9th grade varsity basketball and start all those games at West Mac before I got to West Charlotte. So I got the chance to see Larry Crowder. I got a chance to see Julian Springs. I got a chance to see Byron Dinkins. So if I had to choose somebody who was the best player who also took it somewhere else, it would be one of those 3. Because, I mean, you can't use the pros and you can use college if you want to, but as far as what was most dynamic and what you saw in high school, those would be the guys that made me feel like I was watching somebody that, you know, that took you somewhere different. Like when you saw Julius Springs play for West Charlotte, man, you watching the best wing player I'd probably ever seen. Like there wasn't anybody who could guard him. Now my number is gonna put me on those same lists and what we were able to do at West Charlotte. But for me, when I watched it, you know, people always gonna forget. That's how they do, man. It's always a me now. That doesn't bother me as much. I mean, you can't tell me somebody did more than I did in high school and in middle school or whatever the case may be. So I know I'm one of the best players to ever come out of Charlotte. I'm okay with that point if you're trying to put somebody up there. I just need to know who you're trying to put in the same category with me, because I got some other guys ahead of myself in my head. So I'm willing to kind of talk to any of those guys, but there aren't any guys on the same level with them, to be honest with you. For me, Larry Carter was unbelievable at Myers Park. Julius Springs, people at West Charlotte, and of course, Byron Dinkins he was our guy. So I would have to probably go with him.
All right, so real quick, man, tell everybody what you're doing now, man. If you have any social media handles, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can always find me at Junior Burrough on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook and all that stuff, man. I feel like I'm an old man, so I don't get caught up in that. Mm-hmm. Man, I'm a high school coach right now up here in Norfolk Collegiate, right in Norfolk, Virginia, man. And it's a blessing to be involved in basketball. I've always tried to keep myself around it. I work with Nike. I'm a grassroots, one of the directors of the grassroots program, EYBL and all the other stuff. So I'm still around the game. I still do games for the Wizards, and I work for Comcast, and as many games as I can do as a color commentator for those guys. So I kind of got my life just wrapped around my kids, my family, and basketball, which is a blessing to be able to do those kind of things. So once this whole COVID-19 kind of dissipates and we're able to get back to the normal way of life, or the new normal, I'll be able to be more vocal and be able to do the things I was doing before. I can't wait to be a part of those kind of things, to get us back into our gyms and everything else. So, but yeah, that's what I'm doing.
All right, man. Junior Burrough, I really appreciate this, man. I'm gonna go ahead, man, and give you your roses, man, while you can still smell them, man. A lot of these people in Charlotte, man, they need to recognize, I
left early. Maybe that's what it was, man. I left as a junior, and sometimes, people don't really pull for you like that. But, I mean, that's the best part of it. Like, you sit in the barbershop and you start talking about other guys, Jason Parker's and all those other guys they put out there, man. Those are all fantastic basketball players. But, I mean, as a 47-year-old old grumpy guy now that I am, of course I'm going to put myself in there because I belong in there. But I saw some other guys. I'm one of the few that was able to see that transition from what it was to the new guys that they talking about now. And they don't keep it specific. It's hard to compartmentalize high school to college to pros. But as far as the high school basketball players and being from Charlotte, like at that point in time, man, my crew and the guys around me, the Jeff McGinnises and those guys, we're the first crew to start going to major Division I schools.
Yeah.
So I know what we meant to the city of Charlotte, and I know it transitioned to other people going from other places. James Worthy's from the Gas House, like he's one of ours, but he's not ours, right? But I got to see him and Sleepy Floyd leave to go to Georgetown and North Carolina. And Steve Rivers, Doc Rivers' nephew, went to Tennessee, but I'm the first one to get an opportunity to go to Virginia, and then everybody start going to Carolina on their own. So it's always good to be in conversations, man. I'm blessed.
All right, man. But I wish you nothing but the best, man. Much success. Hopefully
Anytime, man.
Hopefully I can get you on the show again, man. I got a lot of stuff, man. A lot of more questions that I wanted to ask you, man. But I appreciate this time, man. You be safe out here, all right?
You too, man. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Sports Talk with Playeragent3.